Now back to one of our developing stories, the ongoing situation in Stilfontein, where scores of illegal miners remain underground. In the latest developments, the Pretoria High Court has ordered that access to the shaft should remain open and that emergency workers should be allowed to aid the miners. The government's hardline stance on the situation has divided the nation, with some accusing it of lacking humanity. I am now joined by the Institute of Security Studies, Willem, on the police's handling of the situation. A very good evening to you, Willem. Thanks for joining us this evening. And let's just start with this mixed reaction on this hardline stance that the police have taken. Are the police justified to say we will not be assisting criminals?
Good afternoon to you. Yes, you see, the police's stance is that their constitutional duty is to prevent crime, to combat crime, as well as to investigate crime. And what's happening here is these syndicates, they move underground in an abandoned shaft, and they are perpetrating their acts of crime. And so the police was forced to intervene. Now, we should just stand back one step and look at what the scenario is there and what happened in the past. Because the police, whenever they embark on an operation like this, they normally work on intelligence-driven reports, and then they do a very thorough planning in order to bring down an operation like this. So a few months ago, in the vicinity of Stilfontein, in one of the shafts, they had a similar operation, but the challenge there was that these syndicates, when they move underground, we see there are some mentioning of some 4,000 plus that are still there. That needs to be verified, but that's an indication. So with the previous operation, they discovered that these syndicates moved down underground, and then they armed themselves. They got what they call protection and enforcer groups, and they armed themselves with high-powered AK-47 type rifles. And they are protecting the syndicates from other syndicates, because it's a lot of rivalry, a lot of fighting, but also they protect them against the police and the mine security that approach them. So it is extremely dangerous for the police to go down there, because you remember, it's a tunnel, and those tunnels are rock-faced, and what's happening there, if they fire from the dark, because there's no natural light, those bullets, the projectiles actually ricochet and they go anywhere. And it just opened up the police and the mine security to extreme dangers. What has also happened in the past in some of the operations that I've been involved, they use explosive devices, and they plant the explosive devices in the dark, and then they detonate it when the police or the security approaches. So that's the scenario down there. And that is why the police opted to rather wait for them, because at one stage they will have to come up when they are running out of food, and then to arrest them, process them, and those who they can prove a crime against, they will prosecute, investigate those crimes. And of course, if there are some illegal immigrants, they can't prove any crime against them, then they will have to deport them. So that is the stance of the police. But unfortunately, there's a lot of emotions involved. Also, there are families involved, etc., etc. So a lot of pressure on the police as well.
It also just seems, Willem, that the police are damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. So the police minister, Senzo Mkhunu, appealed to the community members to say, stop sending them food aid as well, because this is a way to make sure that they do come out of that tunnel as well. But also, if the community then don't send the food aid to the illegal miners who are underground, then they also fear that they're going to lose their loved ones. And here now we've also got this court order that's saying that the police shouldn't actually be preventing any sort of aid, and they should open up those avenues as well. So how should the police be handling it? If they're saying that, look, don't send aid, and community members continue to send the aid anyway, and if they do send the aid, then they're seen as mollycoddling criminals or alleged criminals.
Yeah, you see, and that is exactly what's happening now. But well, the court order also didn't indicate that the police may not do their duty, perform their tasks. So yeah, that's the interpretation from various areas. But when your aid workers go in and they go and rescue, for instance, your medics and so on, they put themselves under tremendous risk. That is why the mine rescue teams actually declined to enter there because of the unsafe situation that this disused mine is in. So your challenge is there. Remember, these people, these rescuers, they are miners, and they operate under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. They have to adhere to certain of these regulations, or all of these regulations, in order to perform their duties. But when it comes to the Zamas, they operate without, above the law. They don't adhere to anything that is not enforced on them to do so. So say they go into this very dangerous situations out of desperation, out of need, and out of money or greed, whichever way you want to look at that. But the problem that you have there is, if we do not intervene, we might see more people die. But if the police go in, they might get killed. So what is maybe a solution on this side is, and I know many people say you don't negotiate with criminals. I think this situation should be dealt in a manner where there is a communication and they start to negotiate with these people in order to come out. Because at the end of the day, the police doesn't hold a gun against their head and tell them, you can't come out. They are free to come out. They freely went in. And that is the stance of the police with some of the people that I spoke to, that they are there to perform their duties and they are not forcing them to stay underground. But your challenge that you also have now, because of the lack of food or the limited food and water that is available to the people, they might have weakened because your temperatures down there. In a functional mine shaft, if you go down underground to 1 or 2 or 3 levels, or a kilometer or 2 down underground, your temperature in the ventilated shafts is about 38 degrees Celsius. Now, these shafts that they are working in, these tunnels they are working, are not ventilated. They don't have air that has been pumped through these, like in a functional mine. So the situation down there must be pretty desperate.
And, you mentioned earlier about looking at the past as well. The writings have been on the wall. There's been a proliferation of illegal mining across the country as well. And there's been a focus on this, but not a proper focus that needs it be, as we're seeing now as it's unfolding. And with the police, again, being caught in this kind of catch-22 situation. Do you feel that we've missed the point of nipping it in the bud? What needs to be done now? Because now it has, as you mentioned already, I guess negotiation is one of those things. But, speaking to the Department of Minerals and Energy yesterday, they said they actually don't have a plan for illegal miners. They have a plan for artisanal miners, but they don't know what to do about illegal mining. And here it is mushrooming as well. As government, has the government done enough? We've missed the point of nipping it in the bud. What can they do now that it's actually just expanded?
Yeah, I think you're so right. And the problem is, as far back as 2006, we started working in South Africa on this problem. Some policemen were shot, some mine security members were shot down in the mines, as well as the explosive devices that were thrown at them. So then what happened was we should have, as South Africa, looked at our legislation, because your problem there is if you as a mine security police officer go down into the mine and you arrest this person, if he's not in possession of explosives, he's not in possession of GBM, that's your gold-bearing material, he's not in possession of a firearm or in his stolen property, then the only thing you can charge him with is trespassing. So he will pay a 50 or 100 rand fine, and tomorrow he's back in the mine. So we failed to update and amend our legislation in order to address the changing scenario in our country. In 2006, SADC, based on the recommendations that we did after our operations, they actually adopted, and South Africa is also the signatory of a protocol on mining, which effectively would have addressed the situation if we implemented it. But unfortunately, South Africa and many of the other countries in SADC did not fully implement the mining protocol. So that is your challenge that you have. But we must also understand another thing there. Whenever this syndicate move into the mine, there are rival syndicates, so they arm themselves, they fight, they have murders, and so on. They estimated some 3 years ago that 47 billion rand the country is losing 47 billion rand per year due to illegal mining. So that is something, it could have built quite a few schools, could have assisted quite a few people to start off the enterprises, build the houses, and all those things. It could have been done if we managed it from the beginning, but we allowed this monster to grow, and now it became almost uncontrollable. And now the police is being forced to act because of some of these things. But your challenge with that is that when you have this one syndicate, it's a criminal syndicate, they are the miners. Now that syndicate bring other criminal syndicates to your area because now they need illegal firearms. They bring other syndicates in because now they have to sell this money and they have to melt the gold and process the gold, and then they have to launder the gold, and then your kingpins, they are sitting far away from these guys that are foot soldiers underground.
And speaking of that, many people have been asking, who are these kingpins and will we ever get to them? Will the police find them?
Unfortunately, you know, with all the criminal syndicates, especially your transnational organized crime syndicates, they cannot operate without the compromising and the corrupting of state-embedded actors. And that is where our challenge is. These people, when they start to operate, they ensure that they corrupt senior officials and even politicians in order to protect them. Otherwise, they will not be able to operate. So that is one of the challenges that we sit with.
Very scary indeed. And also, just before I let you go, Willem, you know, you've also spoken about the financial implications to our economy, 47 billion rand lost annually to illegal mining. Briefly, there's also other implications, obviously, on the communities that are living in these areas as well, but also the environmental impact as well. You spoke of explosives quite a bit in this interview as well. If you can just chat a little bit about the environmental impacts as well of using these kinds of explosives as well.
Yeah, especially the environmental impact. You know, any mine, whenever they receive a license, a certain percentage of their annual budget has to be allocated to rehabilitation of the site when they withdraw or when the mine is coming to an end. So that is not the case with the Zamazamas. And what they do is there are two things that they mainly use. Some of them they even process and the GBM underground, and there they use a mercury, and a mercury serves as a magnet for gold. So if you put this bubble of mercury out of a bottle, put it in between the finely grinded GBM, it attracts all the gold and it separates the gold from the rock. But your problem with mercury, and now you're working in that confined space where you don't have ventilation, it emits poisonous gases. So a lot of people, they die down there because of mercury poisoning, but it also contaminates the environment if they do it underground or whether they do it in the smelting houses that earlier today they discovered one in Kekana that is near Orkney, about 10-12 kilometers from Stilfontein. And the other thing that they use cyanide. Now we all know that cyanide is a poison, and they are not regulated. They do not adhere to any regulation when using that. And in the process of using all of these, they are contaminating the environment and exposing it because they are having these smelting houses within the communities. So your children play there, your people are walking past there and so on, and they are being affected by this poisonous substance. So that is pertaining to the environment. Oh, just two of the things. The other thing that you mentioned is very, very serious. You know, when they use explosives, and these explosives are mainly, they are siphoned off the illegal mining houses where crime facilitates that they can get those explosives and also the accessories. But also there are indications that a lot of these explosives are being smuggled across our borders. And the problem that you have with that, you know, they smuggle them in buses and in trucks. And in those buses, you've got 60, 70 people sometimes in a bus, and they are sitting on top of that explosives all the way from, say, Harare or from Lusaka, wherever it's coming from. And your problem with that is also when you transport explosives, you cannot mix your different classes of explosives. For instance, your blasting agents or your blasting material, that is your explosives itself, may not be even transported in the same vehicle as your detonators and your other accessories. But they put all of them in one bag, put it in the luggage, and they drive all the way in that unsafe scenario to the East Rand, where a majority of them go. So your challenge is, if one of those charges detonate, because a detonator should not be with the explosives when it's transported. If it detonates, we're going to suffer major, major challenges.
Yeah, one can't stress how dangerous mercury and cyanide are. Willem, thank you so much for your insights and joining us this evening.